Well, I'm Joshua Potts, Mr. Possible, always with the brother with the same mother, Aaron Potts, Super Hot Potts, and you're watching and listening to your favorite two black runners every single Two Black Tuesday. Yes, sir. We're back again. Another Two Black Tuesday, extra crispy, extra fresh. And I'm super excited about what we got teed up, bro. No, this is a great conversation, a great podcast, a great interview. A dude we met back, 3 years ago now, I believe. I think we talked about that for a second. But 3 years ago, Joel Holder is going to come on and talk with us. If you don't know Joel Holder, probably one of the most influential black faces in the fitness industry. He's done so many great things with Nike as a trainer with them. And then just beyond that, what he's done through entertainment and especially running as well has breaking a lot of barriers with his Ocho system and just training celebrities from Virgil and Naomi Campbell. This dude is a trailblazer in his industry, and for him to come down and sit with us and not really talk about even the fitness side of things, but really talk about the business and learn how he has developed his own mindset. It was dope.
Yeah, I feel like this is a really put you on game episode. Like for anyone that wants to start something or build your career, especially if you want to be in like the health and wellness or running industry, but it kind of applies to just anything. And this is a very special episode. I don't know, a couple of months back, like Joshua posted a clip of me talking about when I first met Joe Holder. And he was talking about how much he read and impacted him, and like, you know, how that influence of seeing someone that looks like me talk the way he talks and move the way he moved. I saw something in him, in myself, and that's helped me push forward. Joe saw that, and he was like, "Bet, let give me on the pod." So he came on and gave us some of his time. But I think there's a lot of great gems in this podcast. So whether you're on a run or a walk, like you definitely want to plug this in. He's such a great communicator, great speaker. I'm gonna have to definitely go back and listen to this because there was so much touched on. There was so much touched on that is gonna help me advance, bro, in my career. To be honest, like that's how I really feel about it.
No, absolutely. Without further ado, let's get into the mind of Joel Holder and how he became this great name, how he started working with Nike, the mindset that took him to get to that point, and just all the things he has, even with GQ and beyond and beyond. Like the dude's doing a lot for the community, and he's trying to get power before he can create that change, and he's on the verge of doing that. Well, to be honest, he's already doing
it.
Yeah, he's already doing it. All right, let's get to it. We low-key on here with a guru, some may say. You feel me? We got someone on here on the podcast that we met in 2021 for the run, introduced by the one and only Meb. It's only right that we're doing this on Boston Marathon Monday, Patriots Day, as some people would call it. But we on the West Coast doing our thing here on the Two Black Runners. And the person we have today, he's well-renowned, doing his thing, Nike master trainer, running coach, co-founder of System of Service, founder of the Ocho system. This dude's a GQ. I'm talking GQ columnist as well. Back in the day, he was the all-star high school athlete. I'm talking about triple jump runner-up in districts.
Nah, that wasn't even me. Nah, see,
wait, hold on.
All right, nah, this is what happened. You got my pen bio probably, and they basically updated their roster and they up bio. So I was all what was I? All parochial or whatever in football. I was all county or something in basketball. I was a two-sport athlete, basketball, football. I was a junior Olympian in track.
Okay.
In high school, or through high school, up until high school and high jump. And then I just started to focus on football and basketball. And then I played football at Penn. that then cascaded into all this other stuff. So that's
Both
not
sides.
it's Google's fault.
Play both sides too at Penn, right?
Nah. Don't pay attention to that Penn bio. The website's fucked up. Not your fault.
Dang. The other stuff was all true though. GQ,
Yeah.
Ocho System, all that on the podcast today. We got Joel Holder. Bruh, how's it going? You on the East Coast? You on the East Coast right now? You in New York?
Yeah, I'm in New York. Things are good. It's a sunny day here for once. So survived the earthquake, but
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
weird. But yeah, things are good, man. We're gonna have, transition into spring, staying focused, just really trying to lock in.
Yeah,
Okay.
not your average Joe. I don't care. I don't care what you say about that. You still a great athlete, and you're doing a ton of different things just out in the world. Like we said, when we met Joe back in 2021. We're on like a podcast. Me and Joshua did not know what we were walking into that day, but
Facts.
with Meb and a ton of different people. And since then, Joe, like I just followed you and I was just like, dang, like this dude out here at Paris Fashion Week, this dude hanging out with Virgil, this dude training Naomi Campbell. I was like, this dude does so many different things. And since 2021, me and Joshua, I feel like we have had, great growth, like personally, like figuring ourselves out just as men for sure. But I feel like, Joshua just graduated high school and
Wait, hold on. What?
I
Come
mean,
on,
my
bro.
bad.
Come on,
College.
man. Come on,
My
man. You
bad.
sounded like other people. Joe, come on, man. Like this is the thing. I be walking around, Joe, and people will be all like, "Is this kid 14?" I'm like, that's hella
That is
disrespectful.
crazy.
Not 14, not 14. They'll be like, "Are you 16?" I'm like, "Bro, like I'm literally like at this press conference for the Millrose games, like leading it, and you think I'm in high school? Like, come on, bro. Like, put some
Someone said
respect
that
on
at
it."
Milrose.
Yes, bro. Like, come on, man. I ain't high
But
school.
regardless, like Joshua said, he's done everything from working at the Armory in Milrose to commentating at races. I'm working at Hoka. I'm getting opportunities to speak on stage to athletes. We've been keynote speakers in places, and we're trying to figure out our brand. We're trying to align it, and you're a black tastemaker in the space of health and wellness and fitness. And I just feel like there's a lot of value to what you're doing. You're someone that's doing something new in a space that is kind of, has blown up over the past couple of years. So I just want to give you your flowers to start off the podcast, just to appreciate like what you're doing. And it's very inspiring to see you out here racing horses and doing all this crazy stuff, man.
Nah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, the space is it's continuing to grow and it's changed a lot since when I first started almost 10 years ago now. And yeah, I'm just really, I'm really trying to approach it from both the entertainment side, but also public health. And, people actually need their health improved and not just total spectacle. So, and then the business side, a bit like the game is a game as much as, people just want to act like they do it for the love. Like once you decide to do it as an economic vehicle or economic vehicle, it does become important to have the business fundamentals down. So yeah, but give it another 10 years and then we'll kind of see what's next or where it goes. But yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that love because you never know it when you're in it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, it's necessary to keep to help you keep going sometimes.
For sure. And I feel like for me, I always say like I'm a sponge type of person. Like if I'm around someone or something enough, like I always like pick up game. And one thing I appreciate about you is like you're always giving out like free game. That's what's really like, unfortunately when Virgil passed and like all those things you were posting, like I was on that heavy. And I was like literally a little bit like a year or so before Virgil passed was when I started to like kind of like get into him and find like learn about his story and like how he came up. And then everything happened. And I remember you just posting all the time. And I was like, I don't know, that was like super, super inspiring. I was super into like Nipsey as well. And I feel like both of those are like people that like made super creatives that like made their brand and always had this long-term vision. I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Like when you started this 10 years ago, did you always have like this long-term vision to build out kind of what you have today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the V stuff was definitely probably, very much cathartic for me because that was very hard for me to process. I mean, he didn't tell most people that he was sick. He told me, definitely some things I wish I would have handled a little bit differently, but it was like, his death was sudden and I was kind of grieving in real time. And it was like the inability for me to like have fully processed that when he was still alive because I thought there'd be a little bit more time. So being able to share those stories is very, very helpful, but also because he helped me so much and how I like viewed the world. And then when it came to my business, real or whatever you want to call it, I guess the question is like, did I know from the jump I wanted to turn this into what it is now? Well, there's something key to understand, and this is what a lot of people mess up on. And I'm a student of everything. Like, I think everything can be learned. And what was very important for me to understand the difference between plan and strategy. And especially as a young kid, is like you come up with a plan, but then strategy is when you put it in the context of the real world. So it might have to morph. So when I first started out, my like I'm a very much now one step guy. My first thought wasn't, oh, in 10 years it'll grow into this. Because if I looked at now where I am and when I first started, if I would have said, oh, I want to train Naomi Campbell, Bella Hadid, I want to work with Virgil, I want to get signed to Nike, I want to start a nonprofit, I want to have work with Dyson, I want to do creative work for Smart Water, I want to travel around the world for stuff,
Yeah.
I want to be the first person to do a master class in health and wellness, da 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 da, and other stuff that I'm sure I want to be in photo shoots, I want to be in billboards and other stuff I'm probably forgetting. That would have stopped me in my tracks. I would have been
Yeah.
like, there's no way I could have done this. And then when I would share what I learned early on, when I would share some of these visions with people, they would look at me like I was nuts. Right. So my thing would be, okay, let me get the fundamentals down and do next step. One of the few people who didn't look at me like I was nuts and told me to go harder was Virgil. When I first told him when I was starting out what I was going to do, he's one of the first people, only people to believe in me. But with all that to say is when you first start out, you need to do market research. And the game is different now, but you need to do a little bit of market research that also says where everything is going, not where it currently is. When I first started out, I looked at certain areas that people hadn't fully infiltrated yet. And I thought maybe I could get there. And because of my pedigree and my background, Ivy League educated, Black guy, athlete, whatever, it gave me specific ins to areas that other people didn't have access to. I call that obtuse goal attainment. How can I use what I've previously done to get me somewhere in the future where I think things are going quicker than other people, but still create legitimization as I get there so people don't think I just chumped my way through. But, and I'll open it up, I guess, for more questions. But that thought process where did I know where I was trying to go? No. But I understood, or did I know I was going to end up here? No. But I understood where I thought the industry was going. So I turned uncertainty into risk management and then just focused on the fundamentals in the craft. And then when opportunities opened themselves up, I took advantage of it. Me getting signed to Nike was low key an accident. Me starting to work at, one of the premier gyms at the time in the city and then starting to get more clientele was low key an accident. I didn't know these things were going to happen, but when they did, I was ready for that opportunity because I made sure the fundamentals were right.
No, I think that's great advice. If you think about everything you really want to accomplish in the world, and like if you put all of that in front of you, can be so overwhelming because like we have such a long life to live, and you don't know where it's gonna take you, and that's really the mystery of it all, and what makes it fun. The fact of all like, shoot, I don't know where I'm gonna be, so being able just to jump on the ride and like see what happens, but being focused and having a plan of what is to come I think is the fun part and seeing the surprise. But like how did you go down this path? Like what was the decision of like where did you see yourself that I can be this trainer, or like what was the start of that I can make this sort of thing happen to go down this career path that you are now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the true story is in college, when I was an athlete, I played football at Penn. When I was there, the NIL stuff wasn't around.
Yeah.
So you just NCAA on your likeness. So you was just playing sport. But when I looked at the rule book, one of the few things that you could do to utilize your personality or whatever and likeness was personal training. It was one of the only things that the NCAA allowed at the time. In
Mm.
addition to that, so that always stuck in the back of my mind. Then in addition to that, I read something on AI. This was maybe 2010. And they said one of the hardest things that AI would have to replace would be personal trainers. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. That always sat in the back of my head. And then I had work study jobs, and I used to work at a gym. I was a towel boy at the gym at Penn, and I used to be picking up towels, putting them in laundry. And I would see other trainers there, and I'm like, oh, I could do that. And then basically what happened was I got hurt playing football. So I began to, and my body wasn't healing right. And I had a really bad strength and conditioning coach. One of the worst everybody on the team couldn't stand him. He's one of the worst strength and conditioning coaches I've ever had. He was good at creating strength, but he didn't create athletes. And our team was riddled with injuries, but we were still good just because we had better players. So when I got hurt, I had to figure out ways to train again to get me back. So I used to be heavy on the internet researching, and then coupled with all that other stuff, I basically just found like training the body as a design philosophy super fascinating to me. Like, how could I become a better athlete? I just became writing about it, blogging about it. My friends started to want to work out with me. And then I was finally back playing. And then I hurt my leg my senior year of college again. I broke my leg after I had rehabbed and came back. They told me I'd be out for the year. I told them, nah, give me 4 or 5 weeks. This is my last year. I'm going to try to come back and play at least one game, maybe two. And I was able to come back for the last game of the year, and I played. And I got a little bit of press off of that, and I was able to continue to document the journey. And I just kept training. But that wasn't even my full-time job. My full-time, and I don't really talk about this much, but my secret for anybody is to show up. Most young cats don't want to show up, or they want immediate payoffs. Everything in my life that I've had access to that created something new in the future was because I showed up to things, but I didn't want to. And the first step was when I got my job out of college. I knew I worked in college as a certain internships that were 9 to 5s. And I knew I did not want to work a 9 to 5, but I knew I needed a job out of school. The one of my coach's friends, who was a graduate of Penn, who also played football, has started invested. He's an investment banker, wealth management guy. He had started a company called Health Warrior. It sold chia bars and chia seeds. This was 2012 or maybe 13. I was out late the night before this thing, basically an alumni flag football game type of thing. I was out late the night before. My coach texts me and he says, "Hey, there's this guy I want you to meet tomorrow. Make sure you come to this thing." And I'm like, "Damn." I'm half hungover when I get this text. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there." I go, show up, and he introduces me to this fellow, Nick Morris, who, still very close with and was a mentor early in my career. And we're talking because I had started that blog and website. This was when the Ocho system was founded in college. I had started that, and he goes, "Hey, it's interesting." And I told him about my story, and he said, "Hey, you know what? Interesting what you're doing. I'd like you to come in for an interview for this thing that I'm starting, the company. Maybe you want to work." I just wanted a sample of chia bars and chia seeds just to write about on the blog. But I introduced this guy. He introduces me to the company, the CEO of the company, founder. And then I go in for an interview and I end up getting a job, paying $35,000 maybe a year at the time, maybe less. I couldn't afford to really live in New York. Luckily I have family in New Jersey and friends in New York, so I was sleeping on their couch. But that was just the first step that allowed me to matriculate into everything else. Because through Health Warrior, I then met people in the fitness scene because I was involved in marketing and sales. I'm meeting people in fitness scene, meeting people in running, meeting people at Nike, Lululemon, Under Armour, this and that. Then I meet somebody that then introduced me to the owner of this gym. So I then start working at that gym, and it just starts cascading.
Piling up.
So it just builds, everything builds. And it's been pretty crazy about then how you allow things to build on top of themselves for better results. And there's definitely so much more to that story, but the key really is to keep showing up.
Yeah, and I imagine that when you went to Health Warrior, you already had, Ocho system in place as well. And you're just like there was nothing out there like that or anyone with your type of story. And I feel like you do such a good job of just like embracing who you are. So it like uniquely positions yourself. Was it tough sometimes? Did you have to say no to things in the beginning, or did you say yes to like, was there ever a time where you're like, man, I'm saying yes to too many things?
I look at it like this. I mean, maybe, but all right. So this is just very candid because it's different now with the world of like y'all came up in. Like y'all are
Yeah.
younger. It's a little different. Like Instagram wasn't what it was then. It was really what you guys existed is not social media. You exist in entertainment media through digital networks. So it's very different. When I was coming up, social media was strictly for friends.
Yeah.
Now you're coming up, and even the language that you're using is very fascinating, right? Brand building, having a good story, this and that. Like you were really seeing the world through a very distinctly, in my opinion, not necessarily atypical, but an externalized view of how then the world views you. Very coolly looking glass theory, which I think changes your actions in a way because you're just trying to morph into an algorithm. At the time with me, it was really my thought process was I wasn't trying to act that way. I was just doing things that I thought made sense based upon the real life implications of what I was doing, if that makes sense. I wasn't thinking that I had a good story. I was
Yeah.
just thinking that I was doing interesting things, so I might as well just document it, right? Because that was interesting to me. But to your point of the yes versus no things, one of the best pieces of advice, or maybe I read it somewhere early in my career, the two most important words that you learn are yes and no. In the beginning, it's all about getting shots up because one, you're young, you have more elasticity or wiggle room to fail, and you don't know what you actually know or don't know or what you're fully good at yet. So in the beginning, you get shots up because you can afford misses because the implications of the misses aren't as large. But then you start to see what your sweet spot is. So you're getting buckets up, you're getting skill set, you're making connections, doing this and that. If anything, I spread myself too thin. I was shooting at everything, bro. Like, and again, because I shot at everything, it got me opportunities. I'll tell you another story about how I got my Nike gig, right? Because everybody's like, oh, how do you start working for Nike, doing this or that? I want to do that too, this, da, 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 da. One, you never know if things will work out, but this is what happened. When I'm working at this gym, right? S10, and the night before I'm supposed to teach a class, right? Or no, I didn't have to work that day. I get a text, and a person who was supposed to teach a class said, Joe, hey, I'm actually out of town. There's a 7 a.m. run strong class that I have tomorrow. Can you go cover it? I'm like, damn, it's like 10 o'clock. I'm not a morning person. I can't stand it. I usually had to be seeing clients at 6 a.m., right? And I'm like, this is the one day that I don't got to do it. But you know what? I was like, yeah, I'll do it, right? Didn't want to get up that morning. Was still a little late. Still showed up. I'm opening the gym. People come in for this class. I'm like, yeah, this is fine. Go through the class. I didn't want to be there. There's a woman who was injured during the class, and I was like, damn, now I gotta augment the class, whatever. But I'm like, you know what? You're here. Deal with it. After the class, people in the class come up to me and say, hey, we're from Nike. We like the way you taught this class. Would you be interested in coming in for an interview? We're opening up this project and this is 2014 or 15. We're opening up this project in New York in Soho called 45 Grand. We want you to be a part of it. And I go, okay, sure. So first step there is again, I say yes. I said yes to imagine if it was reversed.
Mm-hmm.
If it was the other way where somebody said, hey, Nike is coming to this class tomorrow. Can you cover it? Of course you'd say yes, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Somebody was like, hey, I'm out of town. I don't feel like teaching this class. Can you go cover it? But anyway, I did. And then the next thing that happened was Nike told me they were going to email me to come in for this interview. I don't hear from them for months. I thought it was over, right? Or it wasn't even in my mind. I get a call randomly one day. I have to go to Boston and I get a call and they say, hey, this is Nike. We've been trying to get in contact with you. We have interviews today. We need you to come to the office. I go, guys, I'm sorry. I got to go catch a train to Boston because I had to go give a talk. I'm still at Healthware at this point. I had to go give a talk and do something else. And I say, can I do it when I get back? And they tell me, right? Sure. I get a call an hour later. They say, hey, no, you actually have to come do it today. Right. And I could have been like, Oh man, I don't have enough time to prep for this. Maybe it'll work out. Nah, I'll get it next time. I said, okay. I pull up to the office. All I got, and I did some work with Under Armour at this time. So all I got is Under Armour in my bag. I don't even have Nike gear. The woman comes out and she goes, Aaron, God bless her soul. And this is why impressions are always important. And you need people who are in room vouching for you before you even know it. You know what she says to me? She says, hey, I didn't see your name on this list, right? I said, we got to get in contact with Joe. I can buy you 10 minutes. I need you to come up with a workout, a playlist, and we're going to have people in the room. They're going to judge you.
Damn.
Who will be working out with you. You have to guide them through a workout, 15 minutes augmented, have your playlist ready. I'll sneak you in. Let's see what you can do. And I look around in this room. This is when Nike was still on the fourth. It was in New York. It was on like 14th and 8th in the old Google building or whatever, maybe 14th and 10th or something. I don't know. I look around the room, and at the time, this was everybody in New York who was something in fitness.
Mhm.
If I said these names, you don't even recognize them now because they all faded out. They're not around anymore. But I'm like, damn, I got to go up against these people who I was looking up to at the time. And anyway, I go in, I'm able to do it, and Nike, they approved it, and I ended up getting signed to Nike at that moment, or whatever in the future. That led to that. So you have to get shots up, man. And the same thing. I have a million stories like this, but that's really what it is. You got to get shots up because as you get older, I call it ageflation. How old are you?
I'm 29.
You're 29, right? And you're 22?
24.
24, just graduated college or whatever. Though the years until you're about 33, each of those 1 years is worth two. You have more
I feel you.
time. As after you get older than 33 or so, each year is worth 0.5. You have a lot less time. So the shots you take, you have to use no's because the shots you take become that much more important. So my thing is early in career, say yes to everything. Say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes. Delay gratification. You never know what gets out of it. And you have the energy and vigor to be able to deal with the stressors a little bit more, in my opinion, before life continues to pick up. So that's how I look at it. And now a lot of my work now is saying no, it's consolidating that energy and making sure what I'm doing moving forward will have bigger payoffs.
Did you learn saying yes by saying all those yeses, or was there a no you said no to where you're all like, dang, like what am I doing right now? Or is it even just something a mentor taught you before you graduated college and really stepped into the workforce?
I think it's a few things. My parents, man, my mom, hard worker, immigrant from Trinidad. My dad, first generation college student, doctor. He taught me how to say, like, instilled hard work. And to me as an athlete, you don't say no unless something makes complete utter nonsense, right? You know how to say yes. You're just like, all right, it's like next rep up. So early in my career, that's what I did. It was like next rep up. I didn't really have any, if anything, I said yes too many times. I didn't have anything early in my career where I said no to, and I was like, damn. There is a certain portion of it where you need to have taste and be able to distill things down and understand when you need to say no. But for me, it's always been yes, because the first lesson in my career, how I got my first job was because I said yes. So from there, I kept building on that. And then I saw in literally every area of my life how it positively impacted me. And I saw with others how it negatively would impact them. And I was like, I don't know why it's not clicking for them, but this yes stuff is working for me, even if the immediate payoff wasn't there or it was just a one and done. And then I read, man. I was a voracious reader. The HBR anthologies or whatever, everybody should have those. It's like these simple essays in different areas of professional life that are very good, right? And then you should read older folk, not just successful, but because they've been through this already. So a lot of people think what they're experiencing is new, and it's not, right? It's like everybody has gone through this in some way. What's new is the context in which you live. So you have to say yes early in your career, because what does that give you? That gives you experience, right? And now you have lessons, you have data, you have feedback. That's the free market at work. And then from there, you can then make realistic bets, because you have a field of data of real life experience, not just secondhand reports and not just feeling, but experience. So then when you might say yes to something that other people are saying no to, they're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. You can say yes because you have a field of data that might go against what other people think is going to happen, but you know it has an increased likelihood to happen, is going to pay off. because you've been in the field, you've been in the streets.
Yeah.
That's so valuable. And most people are not in the field of the streets. They're in the algorithm. They're not actually
Yeah.
experiencing and talking. So, that for me was big.
No, I love what you're saying right now. And back to what you were saying kind of earlier too about the age that we grow up in, it's like no matter subconsciously, like you're affected by this algorithm that makes you want to form yourself into something. And it's so much harder to be authentic. Like me and Joshua were talking about this, like how like recently for myself, like on Instagram, I stopped posting for a while, and I feel like it was subconsciously because of what you were saying, how like you see yourself a certain way. And when I first started Instagram, like 2012 ish, I was just going into college. You're just posting the post, and to get myself back to that this year recently, like I've had to like turn off my likes. I've noticed that like helps me like freely like express myself, on this page, because there's all these like cool life experiences that I get to go to with my brother because of like I decided after school to follow my passion. I decided I'm gonna try and be like a professional like runner, and I'm gonna try and like work for a brand, and I'm gonna do this like podcast. So there's a lot of just like fun things that I can post, but I do felt like it social media started to like affect me in a way to where like I didn't want to post it if it wasn't like aligned with something. So I love what you're saying, because I think me and Joshua have been also very much about doing the work in real life. Like I'm always like, I don't really care like the follower count or whatever. It's like, what are you doing in real life? Who are you talking to? And I feel like that's how you got to where you were, is by having those real life experiences, meeting these people, saying yes. But then on top of that, what you're saying is read. That's like almost like the secret to get yourself even more knowledge than that other person that's maybe having those experiences alongside with you. But if you're reading as well, that can be another thing to get your game up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a few things. One, I experienced that too. I had somebody, the algorithm, and then taking a step back, and you're like, what am I doing? This isn't working. Da, 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 da. I had somebody sit me down early in my career, and he was like, yo, like, he was like, why haven't you been posting? I was like, what do you mean? He was like, yo, like, you need to get, this is 2015, maybe. He's like, you need to get on there, post, because there's going to be a day where you get paid 10, 15, $20,000 just to speak. I'm like, what? And he's like, get on there and post. He's like, who cares? He's like, just show what you're doing, and if it makes sense, that type of thing. And it's a difficulty. I looked at it a few things. I got my following, and I look at it, and there's data here and this and that. I don't care if I'm losing followers anymore, right? Because I have a skill set. I got my followers because of the people who I was working with, and that was fine, right? That helped me create growth. But at this stage now, it's also about having a skill set. So depending upon what you're doing, you can work with other brands, do this, do that, because you also have to get paid, right? Like there's a very interesting thought process about simulation. Not just like we live in a simulation, but that the digital world is a simulation of fame and skill, not actuality, right? So the social media should be a documentation of either what you're doing or what you're growing into or whatever, because that's what's happening in real life. It can't be a simulation, because then you get caught up and you're not actually doing anything well. So if you're caught up in followers, one advice that I learned very early on was, because of my distinct view set, and I'm probably too reasonable to a fault, I will not have a massive amount of followers. I'll get enough, but what I need to do is, who are the people that like me? How do I make them really love me and fuck with me, for lack of a better term, excuse me? And then who are the people who actually have power, utility, and value that I can help or work with that will then help my business grow? Not even out of social climbing, but because that's what business is. And our like business is a service industry. So it's very important to be able to actually provide a service that has some value. Because at the end of the day, social media aside, I will still get paid because I work behind the scenes to help people develop things. So that's very important. But of course, social media helps me drive certain business deals. I'm not going to act like it doesn't. And then on the other side of that, when you talk about developing a skill set and reading and doing this and that, you got to think about this in three ways. You have information, you have knowledge, and you have wisdom. Those are totally different things. Three totally different things. Information is just all the stuff that's out there, right? Knowledge is where you actually take it in and then understand it. I have knowledge because I understand. And then you cross it into the real world, and that's how you create wisdom, because you then have the information turns to knowledge because you know it, and then wisdom because you apply it,
Yeah.
and then you see what works and doesn't work. You're living the true lived experience. So now that is why if you read and then understand and then do, you can create wisdom at a very young age. A lot of people who are old are not wise because not only do they not understand, they also don't do. So the sooner that you do, again, it goes back into getting that real life free market data. Because then if you do it quicker, you can apply, you can then see if the market actually likes it or it's providing value in the market or your life for that matter. So that is a huge key thing. But another big thing is like early in my career, I made the decision that I would focus on B2B based work, not just like one-off consumer based or influencer based things, because that's what a lot of people were doing when I came up, and their longevity is very short. I wanted to see how I could utilize my knowledge or wisdom and work with other companies to scale that in different ways, not just me being front facing, right? So with my Nike career, I've gotten to create concepts and campaigns, right? But because I'm a double-edged sword, I have gotten to star in my campaign, the campaign that I've creatively helped make. A lot of people don't realize that I've actually done. It's like I've actually helped creative direct campaigns for Nike in different ways, or things with Smart Water or Dyson or this or that. So I very early on, I was like, what is my pedigree that actually helps me stand out? I'm a relatively smart guy, Ivy League educated, and I'm in the streets and I know the game and I have relationships. So I was like, okay, I don't always want to be front facing to be able to get paid, but I use my personal training experience, of course, to open up different avenues and doors. But yeah, I don't even know if that answers your question or is insightful in any way or anything, but that's how I kind of look at it.
No, I think that's super good. I remember I watched this podcast with Colin Samir, and they're talking about like a creator pyramid, and like how creators can like set up and like brand themselves. And like a lot of creators, like TikTokers, for example, a lot of them, like how you're saying, like the influence brand, like they are the brand, like the front facing and all that they really have. And everybody kind of like depends on them and funnels to them. That's sort of a bad business model, because if that person retires or has a bad streak or whatever goes up on with them, like people don't get paid. That's a lot of pressure on that person or whatever it may be. But if you're able to be behind the scenes, like you're able to be behind the scenes and still be that front facing person, or just not be that front facing all the time, there's much more people to depend on. It's more teamwork effort and everything that goes with it. But as you talked about that, like I think it's also there's people you want to influence. And I think at the end of the day, like we're all influencers, not even just on social media. We influence somebody. But the fact to be able to impact somebody, I think is different. And like that's what you're able to do from behind the scenes, like creating like actual campaigns and like systems and services to people, that you're not just influencing someone on social media. Like you said, this all really is a service. Like to be able to actually like serve people is what essentially like makes that true impact and not only influences. So I think that's good. I didn't even use the answer too, but I think that's such a good such a good topic and just thing to talk about. That's such a good thing to understand, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But then I wanted to also, because I just see you and how you talk, you're able to communicate super well, even on Good Morning America. Like when you explain the thing from Nike, it almost seemed like personal trainers American Idol. Like that seemed like a game show. Like, dude, like make a playlist, a training all at the same time, super quick. Did you imagine yourself being a public speaker in this way? You do so many
That's a
speaking
good question.
engagements and everything in that way. Did you imagine yourself 20 years when like in your high school doing that in some type of way? And like, does it surprise you or whatever that may be?
Uh, Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I've been able to talk at a lot of places. And more importantly, actually have been able people to actually listen. You know what I mean? It's like even my smart water thing. With smart water, even though it didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. I worked with them for maybe 2, 3 years. Big company. Woman there, Jen, was great, really vouched for me. But how I got that gig was I gave a free talk at an infatuation thing, which then led her. She was like, "Oh, I like this guy's story. I think we could work with him." That type. So again, you got to say yes. And the manager at the time wanted me to say, who I don't work with now, but wanted me to say no because it wasn't going to be paid. And I said, nah, I want to do this. So let me get my reps. I want to get my reps up. I want to be able to talk. But the talking thing, I guess I realized at a young age that when you play sports, you always have, I like to say, eyes are the OG cameras, right? When you play sports, you got people looking at you, whether basketball, football, track, whatever. You can't run from that. So that taught me very early on to be able to express myself in different ways. And then, studying sociology, minoring in psychology and marketing, I just saw the power of being able to speak. But no, I mean, I didn't really think I would be able to get into public speaking like that. But I just realized that I could condense that things down into ways that made it applicable to the normal listener, and people tended to enjoy that. And I do believe, very frankly, and want to open up for more questions. We probably have like 15 minutes or whatever. But language, people don't respect language. Language is such a powerful tool. It's how we communicate and able to distill down emotions and make other people understand them, or facts. And
Mm,
what I'm fascinated with and was fascinated early on was that people were communicating things in ways that didn't really actually help the listener. So I wanted to say, if I know what I'm doing, I should be able to communicate that accordingly. And then if you just look at the business of stuff, it's like, you can get paid to speak. And that allowed me also to perfect my craft, because I operate in a three-tiered structure, which is theory, which is I should be able to understand the overall thing utilizing empirical data. And then after theory, then you have to make it practical, which is how do I apply this to my life in a way that makes sense? And then to the individual, which is then does that work for the person I'm trying to talk to? So I look at it like that. I didn't think I'd be this big public speaker guy, but I realized from a very young age, and also just because as Black men, this is very candid here. As a Black man, you need to be able to communicate. The way people talk, like I'm not on this, token Negro type energy, or, what people call it. I'm sure you guys would probably call Oreos or something in your life. I'm not about, what I am about is, as a Black person, the game is the game. And if you might be judged on your exterior, it's not even about coded language. I think there is power in being able to communicate effectively, because it's very able to both give you power and also disarm the person who might not give you enough respect.
For
And
sure.
that allows our culture, our people, to continue to grow and stop having this thought process that the way you talk doesn't matter, because it does. And if I can then disarm other individuals by utilizing my language and also communicate something that I think could be life changing, which is this public health message, it is upon me to be able to utilize that effectively. And if that, of course, leads to other opportunities, for sure. But I just think language is a very underutilized tool that most people just overlook.
When you say language, are you speaking to like the words you use, how you say something, the timing, or is it my fault?
No, you
Or like,
good. No, that's a good question. All right, so there's this book, Contagious, by Jonah Berger. Jonah Berger was my professor in college. He was essentially workshopping the book in the class that he taught with us.
oh, I've read that. I think I know what you
Large
mean.
book, whatever. Um, and of course, it's a mix, right? It's how, look at this, right? Look at Ron DeSantis. What did he do? He studied Trump and he tried to do the hand movements, but it didn't really work. People are like, this is weird. This isn't working. So there's a mix of things. It's do you use filler words?
mhm.
Do you have proper pauses?
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you know how to utilize words that have distinct types of emotions that will get your opinion across in ways, but it might be more powerful, but with less words? And also, I started to understand this more because of writing for GQ. I work with a couple good editors that had me understand the difference between talking versus writing. But when I say language, yeah, I mean the words you use, how you deliver them, what you're trying to say, eye contact, posture, all of that. Because I don't know, it goes back to sports. It's not even in my time studying in college. It goes back to there's a flow to everything. Everything's a dance, whether it's sport or otherwise. So that's what I do when I think about language. It's what is it that I'm actually trying to say? How do I communicate that effectively? How do I connect facts also with emotion to make you remember them? And that then, yeah, how do I just have a good time doing it? But it was a lesson for me to be able to distill down what I was learning and to be able to speak it. And then in my head, it's basically what happens in my head it's not that I black out. It's just that I don't necessarily think in a way that has me construct things intensely. So if I've learned something, I will literally sit in my room and I will explain it and then to no one, to the wall. And in my head, if I know it's not flowing, that means I don't fully get it. And I need to go back and study. So then it became a practice for me of can I talk? Do I actually know this well enough to be able to talk about it? And then be able to communicate that effectively in a way that other people then also understand it. And then people don't read anymore. You see the stuff with short form content. People want the thing. You have to be able to talk to be able to deliver a message effectively. So it's also just adapting to the time that I was in. I'm a much more of a writer and a reader. I want to read. I don't want to hear your opinion. I want primary text. I want works cited, and I will sit and I will read all that. But then I realized that's not how most people operate, right? And so I have to be able to figure out multiple ways to communicate effectively. And that's really where I started to work on being able to talk.
I think it's really interesting, and we'll close up soon. I think we may end up running long. So I have a few things though.
Fine,
I'm interested.
good.
I'm thinking, bro, like, dude, like being a personal trainer, learning science of like what you majored in college, but really being a trainer is so relational, but more than ever it's all about communication. Everything
Good.
that you really um truly like desire and that you want to learn from was communication, and it led you straight into personal training that led to so many other things that you did on your life because of the study that you had in communication. And I think it's so powerful because the way we communicate and the relationships that we made is super impactful to anybody that could be. And I was curious of just like, I know you have something to say, but what were just some even just testimonials as well from people that you worked with where you got to see the impact of the communication and the work that you did that was able to help somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I had somebody come up to me at Chicago Marathon and said because of I had a stroke and I couldn't walk up and down stairs because of exercise
Wow.
acts that had me start moving again, and I'm about to run the marathon because I found a way to communicate something that was originally called fractionized exercise into a concept called exercise snacks that then allowed me to be able to proliferate that out with my work, right? But you also look at the power of language, right? It's like we live in such a consumptive culture. The power of language, where does that exist? In advertising. But we use advertising to buy things. We don't use advertising actually for like social good. So I became very frustrated and I learned the power of communication just because with my work, let me ask you an honest question. And of course, there's stuff out of my control that I'm blessed with. I'm 6'3", I'm a decently attractive guy. I'm black, like that. I'm in shape. That automatically gives me a little bit more power, right? But if I can't commute, but really, what happened was I melded that with communication and the fact that whatever I have Ivy League background, that would impress people. I can't control that. I'm gonna use the game for what it is, though, and I'm gonna leverage that and do my work well. But let me ask you a question. Most people know what they should be doing. As a personal trainer, what am I really doing? I'm increasing health literacy and then making you do that. Is my message really that powerful that you should work out? Everybody knows they should work out.
Yeah.
Everybody knows they should eat a little healthier. What I'm doing is a service of implementation. It's not groundbreaking when I'm asking you to do it. Now, there's a lot of charlatans out there that come up with these complex theories because they want to impress you. And then that makes you buy something, hopefully, to see it works. For me, It's foundational health literacy. How can I inspire you and make it easy for you to do the things that you know you should be doing, but you don't? That is the fundamental question for me. And that's what language and communication is about. Because how do I do it? Do I do it out of shame? Sometimes that works. Do I do it out of inspiration? Do I do it out of practicality? How do I do it? And then that, whatever I learn, that allows me to push forward. So that's one testimonial. My master class did very well. And I'm gonna tell you straight up what I did with that. Everybody's like, and I had my brother as a part of it, which is funny because I know y'all brothers. And I didn't realize that some people actually need to rehearse. I rehearse, but I rehearse, as I told you, just by sitting down, thinking, and then speaking. There was no script for my masterclass. I sat in front of the camera and just talked. I said, hey, just give me the outline for what we need for this chapter. I've worked on this for months. Don't give me some script. Let me talk. I just talked the whole time. And my brother was so shook because he was like, what do you mean we're just going to do this in one take? Da, 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 da. But, other testimonials, yeah, I've had people reach out, DMs, say, I've had somebody say, hey, you helped me reverse multiple people say, you helped me reverse my diabetes. Naomi Campbell, I worked with her. She made a whole YouTube video with me about how Joe Holder made me start working out again, like working out again. Like that shit is crazy. It's Naomi Campbell. She knows she should be working out. So communication is not just language, right? It's about how it's like your lived form. How do you live your philosophy? And how do you, communicate that with other people to make them go? But yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. That's my next step. My next step is public health-based work. It's at the end of the day, we live in such a consumptive-based culture where people are inspired by advertising and look at that as a form of art. Could you imagine if you walk down the street and there was some sort of public health messaging that was created by the advertisers at like Rolex? You probably start to change your life a little bit. And the fact that we haven't utilized consumptive marketing techniques to apply that to public health or social good is very baffling to me. When all we have to do is get people, a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people just to change their behavior, which they have the total ability to do that doesn't cost a lot of money. So that's how I look at it.
Well, what's dope about it too is like we're gonna see you front facing doing things, but there's gonna be a lot of stuff, a lot of businesses behind the scenes, things that you're gonna implement. You might be the person doing that Rolex campaign or ad.
Hopefully, or it's just a good thought experiment.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like that's how you have to approach these things. And it's just running, whether it's me racing the horses or doing these marathons, or it's like the game is the game. Like, and this is some advice that I have for you all is you have to show your skill in action, and storytelling is very important. I learned that early on, which is just narratives, right? Is you go look at a brand's marketing budget, right? Advertising budget. What are they doing? They're trying to tell a story outside of their core product that they might provide. So you got to look at what is your story? What is your product? What is your service? How are those offered together? And what are the different ways you can make that work, whether that's social media or otherwise, right? So that's what's very important. Like the most powerful tool that you have is storytelling. And how do you tell those stories? Because then that acts as an onboard ramp for what you want people either to do or to hire you for. And it doesn't have to be nefarious or anything like that, right? But at the end of the day, why do I go race a horse, right? Because there's so much history to that. There's underlying terms or underlying scenarios, right? Most people don't know this, right? Never hear the story of Jesse Owens and what he had to do after the Olympics?
After the Olympics, how he couldn't really run no more because he wanted to get money, and they were like, you have to be an amateur.
What did he have to do to get money?
Oh, he had to race a horse. He was doing a bunch of stuff against animals and stuff.
Yes, because he wasn't getting paid. So there's an underlying thing like that, which is just showing equity in the space doesn't really exist, but also making it entertaining. And you know what's crazy? Do you know what happened after World War II? He wasn't thanked, right? Because he goes to the Olympics, right? The president at the time, maybe it was FDR or something a little bit after, never thanked him. Unfortunately, the only person who sent him anything was Hitler, which was like a punch in the mouth probably to him, because Hitler wouldn't even shake his hand. He wasn't thanked by an American president until 1955.
Wow.
Eisenhower finally thanked him and put him on some sort of council, essentially. But all this to say is like, how do you tell a story that connects with the longitudinal history of something, keeps it interesting in now, and also connects to the skill set that I've been known for, whether that's running or otherwise, and puts it in a different way. So that's what you got to do. And then a bunch of stuff builds off of that. But I don't know, man. We got to make health and wellness interesting again. And you got to just figure out ways to put yourself out there.
You low-key like kind of I had like some closing out questions, but you low-key like hit them like all right in because I want to know the current state and what you're trying to do next and all that type of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's business building. I'm trying to write
Yeah.
books. I'm currently in negotiation for a couple book deals. Exercise snacks is definitely what's next. Just filling out that infrastructure. It's building a media infrastructure really. And then, it's my work with Nike. It's like I think Nike has the ability to be one of the biggest players in improving public health. And I'm figuring out ways to work with them to make health and wellness additionally culturally relevant. And yeah, I just read up my deal with them for about probably 3 more years and see where it goes from there. But that's what's next. I look at it like this. My goal, create the infrastructure and then essentially make like a record label is the easiest way to describe it, right? It's like everybody does this stuff in silos. And I'm more interested in like power and change than just cool kids. Because it's like I see what y'all are doing out there. It's like it doesn't make sense. You're just working on your own, really, right? It's like how do we get access to power structures? And I think that's consolidating all this stuff down and able to work together to do more interesting things. And of course, we all get paid, but also will create change. And that's really what I think is next. Like that's what I think I'm good at. I call it apolitical politics. Like I'm very good at relationships. I don't always need to do things super front facing. That's what the young kids are for. That's what y'all are for. That's what Virgil did well, right? He got a whole bunch of young kids co-signed to continue while he worked on his craft and made his craft better and unlock crazy power structures that we all can get access to. So that's really what I'm thinking about. Like true health and wellness change is about power structure change. It's like I'm not out here just needing to make, shirtless workout videos on Instagram or do this or that. Like
Yeah.
that served its point and purpose. My thought process now is power and like true power for change and to bring up like young cats with me and see if we could do that together. So I'm guaranteed, and not necessarily, I like to say I was semi-retired for the last 2 years. Like I just really like took a step back and, cleared some things up while of course still working. But now like I'm really gearing up for the next phase of my life that is going to be make it or break it. Like, and it's going to be a lot of hard work, but that's what the past 10 years were for setting up.
I do have one other thing. What's encouraging that you're seeing in either social media or just health and wellness that's like outside of you that you really like to see, like a project or a person out there? What's something encouraging?
Damn, it's a really good question. Uh, I think the common consumer is seeing the spectacle of it all, where a lot of it is just not necessarily fake, but they realize so much of it is fluff. So they're not giving as much energy essentially to fluff, at least like millennial and Gen Z. So I guess what's encouraging me is the more incredulous or more tasteful consumer, and that then people are wanting to figure out ways to actually do the thing instead of just consume the thing, right? Because like as much as content as you consume, unless you do it, it's not going to change much. So that's encouraging. And I think it's also encouraging, like seeing how large the business is growing of all this. Because in my opinion, every company is a health and wellness company. And for better or for worse now, a lot of big companies are trying to get into the game. It's like Amex just kind of launched within its credit card app, one of its credit card apps, like a health and wellness hub because financial literacy and the stress that it associates is a little intense. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a good play, but when I first came in the game, this is the Ocho system is basically 8 core components that I think create one's personal wellness and health philosophy. I had financial in there, social, intellectual, occupational, all these other things besides physical. And people are like, what are you talking about? And I was like, hey, every company is a health and wellness company. They're like, what? I'm like, all right, just watch. Like every company's watch what happens. And now it's happening. And it's encouraging to see, not because I'm like, yeah, I was right. It's encouraging to see because Reaganomics only works within culture. we're going to have a trickle down effect if all these companies now believe that health and wellness is valuable. Why? Because it makes them money, right? But in order for them to make money, there's a way also to get people healthier. So I think this is the first time in our modern history that we will make money off of getting people healthier. And that is encouraging to me. And that's why it's important for people like us to step up and figure out ways to eat off of this, because there will be the people who are just out there trying to get money and create a larger gap between the haves and the have-nots. But a true public health initiative around true public health will not only improve the social structure and fabric of America, but also make money. And that is the most powerful thing you can do in America. So imagine now we could get money and make people healthy. Why would I not want to be part of this time? Why would we not want to all be it? And we should, while we doing this stuff and like enjoy it, smell the roses, especially when you're young, go get what's yours and do some good along the way. And I think that's where we're shifting to, and that's what's making me excited.
Dude, let's go.
Dang.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's
Come
get
on,
it, man.
That was a good way to start the morning. Come on. Aaron, you got something before we get out of here, bro?
No, man. I mean, everything. Yeah, nah. Thank you for all of that. I just feel a lot of what you're saying, I really connect with. A lot of the stuff you were saying too about like just being someone that's doing stuff behind the scenes. I'm still trying to figure out myself exactly what that looks like. I know I want to be somebody, like I'm trying to figure out what my standard is and what is my thing. And I'm someone out there, I'm trying to like put up shots, like making these real connections in the media world, in the industry world, and like people trying to, infuse diversity and culture and health for our people. Those are things I'm involved with in so many different ways, like starting run clubs and things like that. So I'm at the point in my life where I'm like starting to connect the dots and put it together to figure out how do I best serve like my community and who is the community I serve. So a lot of this was super helpful for me personally. So I appreciate you just taking on the time.
Yeah, man.
Gonna have to definitely listen back to this, so I could get those nuggets again.
Look, man, that's what I say. It's like y'all doing this and keep it up, but also look at the game. It's like you look at the NBA, right? It's like, yeah, I wish somebody told me this as a kid and we could stop after this, but it's like, don't look at MJ all the time. Look at all the people on the bench, all of them getting paid, who owns the arena. Look at all the ads that are around the arena. Who's the GM? Who's the scout? Who's this? Who's that? There's a lot of different spaces for people that might be present in there, which a lot of people don't like realize. Or even look at music, right? It's like, what's his name just died? Rico Wade. Like a lot of people probably don't know who he is, but he's a hip hop producer down in Atlanta, right? Who'd he put on? He got Future in the game. He got Outkast in the game.
Legend.
He got, a bunch of people in the game. Most people have never heard of Rico Wade. So you got to make a decision. Sometimes it might not be your position to be known, but it still could be a position to be successful. And it's like figuring out your skill set that you can apply to be successful. Because there's a lot of people who are in front of the camera that are destitute. And maybe there might be some people that are just better than you in that regard. Patrick Beverly averaged 41 points or something in high school per game? You don't think of Patrick Beverly as a scorer. You think of him as a shit talker and a good defender. But he averaged 30 plus points in high school.
He in the league though, and he
in the league for a long time.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. It's like you gotta think about that too. How can I get in the league and stay there? And sometimes I might have to let other people take bigger roles.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Our pop says, "Get in where you fit in." That's what our dad always be saying. Get in where you fit in. So I feel you.
Exactly. Appreciate you, bro. This was great. I'm gonna go eat an apple. I'm gonna read another book. Probably gonna go on a run a little bit, stretch. You feel me? I'm ready to apply myself for sure. But that was awesome, bro. Nice talking to you.
Of course, fellas. Appreciate you. Have a good day.
Too.
Because you could just tell that he's about like all of that stuff that came like naturally, but that came from him putting in the work in real life. It's not about like, I hate like the low key, the social fake world. It's about these connections and these experiences that he had and his focus on like his mission to affect like public health and get it to more people. And that's kind of like, for me, I'm trying to find a way to do that with just like running and culture. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I'm in all these like different spaces and I'm like uniquely positioned. I don't know if I want to be, a freelance person though, or whatever, or if I want to be Patrick Beverly at Hoka. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to be successful regardless at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? That's what I want to be. I want to be successful and I want to make an impact. That's literally what I want to do. So like that was super interesting conversation, bro.
No, yeah, and we'll just put this at the end of the podcast when we go away from the interview. But I just want to say too, that was really interesting, like the social media aspect and how we like broke that down. Because I do think that people now in social media, like you're either a creator or a producer in
Yeah.
social media, and like for me, it's especially like when I'm more of a producer in social media, like it's honestly like it's so drain. I mean, not wait you're either I'm sorry, a
You're
creator
either a
or a
consumer.
consumer. Like you're either a creator or a consumer, or a producer or consumer. When I become more of a consumer, like honestly, like I can't do it. Like I can't. Like, I have to get away from social media when I consume and consume and consume so much and don't create. But I think that's really just because like I grew, especially for me, like I grew up watching YouTube and then like I wanted to emulate YouTubers. So like from a young age. So like social media is directly tied for me. Like when I started social media, I started creating in like some way. It may have been small, but like I started creating and was like looking for likes and like looking for people and like trying to be as creative as possible. So like so it's definitely weird how I approach social media compared to someone else that got it when they were older or whatever it may be. So that's such an
Yeah.
interesting topic that
Cause like
hopefully we could talk about more in the future.
because like I get you too. Like I'd rather be a producer than a consumer, but like also like at times like I don't want to be either. I don't want to be a consumer or I don't want to be a producer. I just want to be, you know, on Instagram, seeing what my friends are doing.
Yeah.
That's what when I came into like with Facebook and when Facebook was out, when MySpace was out, like that's what social media was more. It was more for keeping up with your friends. It was not about like being like a producer versus like a creator. It was just like natural, and then things like popped off. But now things don't authentically like pop off like they used to. Everything is like contrived. So it's just that's what makes it that's what just makes it draining in general to me.
Yeah. But appreciate y'all sticking around for this one. That was a great podcast. Hope you guys were inspired. Just like got a new perspective that you never really heard of and got to see like, yeah, bro. It's so great doing like a Black Tastemakers episode and seeing how these people end up in these such unique positions that like how did Joe Holder end up as a Nike master coach and so many different things? Like it's not impossible, and like these are much needed people in the space to continue to inspire and impact and influence the next generation. And yeah, cool dude, man. We'll see y'all next week. Anything else, Aaron?
Appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all, go ahead and give us a rate, tap in. We got another Black Tastemakers podcast coming soon.
Next
So,
week. No, next week. Yeah.
Well, who knows? Who knows the order that these will come out, but just stay tuned. There's gonna be more of this coming. Also, yeah, we're probably gonna release this in like 2 weeks or so. But last podcast I was on here, I was like, yo, could y'all get us to 3K? And y'all came through, y'all performed, So I appreciate y'all.
Big ups. Big ups.
Big ups. Big ups to y'all for that. We at 3K.
All right. Appreciate y'all. Let's get it.